Coming up, one man's journey to escape a hopeless fate and how he's now restoring eyesight. The conversation starts now.
Real friends, loving, laughing, and learning together. Sharing stories, one life at a time. So grab a seat. Welcome to Joni'sTable Talk.
Well, imagine a world in which your fate was already decided. What could possibly save you? Today, we'll introduce you to a doctor who faced insurmountable odds, but all along the way, God was orchestrating his steps. Now he's sharing his incredible story as well as challenging the notion that faith and science are at odds with each other. But before we hear more about that, joining me around the table is my beautiful daughter, Rachel Lamb Brown. How are you?
I'm good.
It's hard to say add the Brown to it, you know?
Long.
I said Rachel Lamb for so long, you know?
Yeah.
But how are you doing?
I'm good, and I'm excited about today's guest.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing more powerful than somebody's story.
Yes.
And I love hearing people's stories, especially around the table.
Yes.
I do too. It is fun. April Simons, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Are you seeing well today? Because we do have an eye doctor on the table today.
Oh, I see good.
If you have any questions.
Okay, I'll ask.
Cindy Murdoch, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
We always love hearing testimonies, don't we?
Love, love, love it. I always love hearing how somebody got from where they were in the beginning to where they are today. And
yes,
how God
yes.
does it.
Well, Dr. Ming Wang, welcome to the table.
Thank you, John.
I'm glad your name's easy to say, Dr. Wang. Yes. You could have had a really hard Chinese name for sure. Well, for Dr. Wang, his future seemed decided before he ever really had a chance to even think about who he wanted to be. Born during a time in China that would see the loss of nearly an entire generation, his story is one of impossible opposition and the miraculous hand of God. So before we talk about your story, tell us about the China that you grew up in and what was going on during the time that you were born.
It was a crazy period of time called Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976. In 1966, the communist dictator decided the best way to keep on dictating is to keep people ignorant. The best way to keep people ignorant is to actually destroy the education of all the young people of an entire nation.
Wow.
They shut down all universities and colleges. It's really unthinkable, you know, from our perspective here in the West today. And then shut down all universities and forcefully deported every single high school graduate to the poorest part of the country and condemn each one of us a life sentence of hard labor and poverty. Yeah. And in 1974, I was 14 years old. I finished my 9th grade. I was a straight A student because Mom and Dad always taught me growing up that education is everything. We were actually an atheist family. We believe in education.
And your family, your parents were doctors, correct?
My father,
Your
yes.
father was
My
a
mom's a
doctor.
teacher in med school, was a teacher. But it was a very poor family at the time that the combined salary for both of them per month is only $15.
Wow.
So it's very poor.
$15?
15 US dollars per month.
Wow.
Combined household income. So it was very poor, and they instilled in me that education is the way out. And Dad always said that if you can master mathematics, physics, and chemistry, you can go anywhere in the world. So it was a family focus on education where, you know, Cultural Revolution hit us in 1974. And government said I would be deported. And I had to leave the school and couldn't go beyond 9th grade. And I faced with this devastating fate of deportation and the labor camp for life.
And your parents couldn't make an argument for you, of course. They were probably devastated, right?
Yeah, and all the intellectuals were prosecuted as well during those days. So they themselves, you know, couldn't protect even themselves. So it turns out that one of the ways to escape deportation and being sent away is to have a music talent. If you can play an instrument or if you can dance.
Music?
Yes, if you can dance, and you can get into what they call communist song and dance propaganda troupe. If you can get into that, you might be able to allow to stay in the city because communist government still need musicians and dancers and be exempted from deportation. And so I started playing the Chinese violin. I brought a CD the instrument I used to play called erhu. And so I started playing this instrument every day because I have no way to go to school anymore, and I would be sent away unless I could play the instrument well enough to be admitted to Communist song and dance propaganda troupe. And I remember I was playing a piece written by a blind artist. He wrote this beautiful piece. You know, at night you walk out, the moon shining down. It was a beautiful but sad piece because he couldn't see. He was imagining how beautiful it could have been if he could see. So I was emotionally connected to him. It may explain the fact that years later I end up, you know, becoming an eye doctor. Because today I see someone who is suffering or blind. I want to help because I used to suffer myself.
Well, what made your transition from music to trying to be a doctor?
I had no prospect to become a doctor during those days. I just wanted to at least play an instrument, be not being sent away to labor camp.
Did the music save you from being deported?
No, because communist government discovered I was playing music instrument with ulterior motive, not for music per se, but to skirt the government policy of deportation. So they stopped my music. Then I picked up dancing, because if you can dance, you can get into song and dance troupe as well. And that was discovered and stopped. To help put into perspective, these days in America, sometimes friends come and talk to me and say, "Oh, Ming, so nice, you have a hobby, you can dance, you can play an instrument, nice to have these hobbies." You know what I say? I say, I didn't learn these as hobbies. I learned it to survive.
Wow.
So I try everything.
So the music and the dance, but they figured out that you were doing it to keep from being deported. So then, did your parents try to get you into med school?
Yeah, I couldn't even go to senior high school, so much less medical school. But my father figured a way, smuggled me in as an illegal medical student, so I would study in the medical school every day, and I thought maybe I could one day become a doctor. But that was I was discovered by the Communist authority as well. So I was expelled from a medical school that I was not even admitted.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So I was not even allowed to study knowledge for knowledge's sake.
Okay, so at some point you escaped. How did you escape?
I was going to be deported in 1976, almost 17 years old then. The Cultural Revolution ended. The dictator died.
So it ended just as you were about to be deported, but you had had all these
I tried everything else.
little sides.
Yes, I tried everything else to avoid
it.
it, and all failed. But I was going to be deported, but the communist dictator died. So Cultural Revolution ended, and China realized what a tragic mistake it has made upon itself by having destroyed the future of 20 million young people.
20 million people.
Young people from 1966 to 1976.
Can you imagine? And what happened to those 20 million?
Most of them were never heard from again. They were dispersed in a vast country, in the poorest part of the country. Most of them were, you know, never got a chance to go back to school ever again.
They just had to adapt, I guess, wherever they were.
Yes, and it was a lost generation. It was a lost generation.
So there was just a segment of society that was lost from all that.
Johnny, you're absolutely right. Today you go to China, you see those business leaders and company heads. There are people in their 60s and 70s, and there are people in their 30s and 40s. You're missing the 40 to 50s.
They're missing us.
Yeah, missing us. Yeah, they're missing that segment. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's crazy.
Like our baby boomers, they would be totally...
The Cultural Revolution is as incomprehensible.
Wow.
Hard to imagine even as Holocaust itself.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was basically almost like a Chinese Holocaust that took place with 20 million people. Okay, so, you know, as you're telling your story, I can see God's hand on your life. Yeah. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because, I mean, here you tried everything. So finally, what happened to get you to America and into medical school?
I had to apply for college. I was only 9th grade dropout, 3 years prior. So mom and dad said, you have to jump overnight 3 years ahead into 12th grade. I said, why can't I just wait for 3 years? They said, there's no guarantee they will not shut down university again next year for another 10 years.
Oh, no.
So I have to do the nearly impossible, but I knew that I have to do it. Mom and dad helped me. They copy exams every day. They work very hard during daytime, evening, and they drill me very hard, like studying 19, 20, 21 hours a day.
Wow.
I did barely get into college, but I did not have anything to do with the dictators anymore. I've suffered enough from 14 to 17. So 1982, with $50 borrowed from a visiting American professor, with enough money gathered together from relatives for one-way airplane ticket. I didn't have money to go back if it didn't work out. Man. I was dropped out National Airport, Washington, D.C. with that $50, with a Chinese English dictionary, knowing no one in this country, could hardly speak English.
And how old were you?
21.
Wow.
But with a big American dream.
But $50, and you didn't know God.
No, I was
didn't have
atheist.
a relationship with God. So what happened at that point? Where did you go that night? Where did you sleep that first night?
I had only $50, so I have to get some clothes, and I didn't have money, so I budgeted $20 for clothes. But I ended up having only to spend $10 because I went to Salvation Army, the thrifty store, used clothing store, and I thought I wanted to dress like American because I'm here, right? And I put on those used clothes on next day and show up in the university campus, and everybody was laughing at me. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" It turns out I bought these clothes that people wore 15 years prior in late 1960s. So I was wearing bell-bottom pants and takoyaki shirts. And,
Oh, my goodness.
But I had to rent an apartment with 2 other guys. We share $100 rent per month, all 3 of us. A basement, no windows. So it was, but...
So did you find a job right away, or?
Found a job earning like $198 every 2 weeks.
Which was a lot, right?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
The most important, I have the freedom.
Yes.
To pursue a dream. And I was able to, study in some wonderful universities, and I really feel that I'm so blessed. And at the time, I was still atheist, and I, studying science in the movie God's Not Dead. There was this cute Chinese student who came from China to study in American university, riding the bicycle on campus. Yeah. And only wanted to study science, and his story in that movie, that character is based on my life story.
Yes. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
So the Chinese guy in the God's Not Dead is based on his story.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
He's a lot better looking, though, the actor.
No, you were better looking. So I love this part, and I pray to God for more professors like the one professor that reached out to you. Yes. So tell us about, Rachel, you're going to love this. He took you, was it to coffee? Or?
Yes, I was studying medicine. Actually, before that, I appreciate very much what parents have done to me during Cultural Revolution. So as I got older, I wanted to take care of them. So a few years ago, I moved both of them in to live with me for the rest of their lives.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted to take care of them in their sunset years. And so I was studying medicine in Boston, and I realized that the human eye is so complicated that the number of neuron cells in one person's head involving vision capturing and interpretation for vision is greater than the number of stars that we have ever discovered in the entire universe.
Wow. Wow.
So if you, based on atheist belief that things come out of random collisions, and then I calculated, it would have taken, because by then I had my doctorate degree in laser physics, and I'm getting my second doctorate degree in medicine. I realized that it would have taken trillions of years for a structure such as human eye to form, much longer than the 13 billion years that universe is purported to have existed. So I was in crisis because my atheist belief, my gung-ho science only viewpoint could not explain a fundamental question such as how human being could evolve out of random, so complicated structure. So that's where that professor saw an opportunity to influence me. He took me out for lunch, and he said, "Ming, what's a cross street?" I said, "That's a car." He said, "What's the difference between a car and a human brain?" And I said, "Human brain is a lot more complicated." And he said, "Okay, can you imagine a pile of random piece of metal assemble itself into a car?" I said, "No way." He said, "How about human brain?"
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So right then and there, he opened a window in my world that shows that there are things, the reason that human eye can form such a complicated structure in such a short period of time is because it's formed not out of random. It's formed with a specific purpose for vision. Right. And there's a designer behind it. And the professor showed that life is not just about science. Life is about science and faith. It's about Christian faith. It's learning to walk with Jesus Christ. Because then, what you're studying, science, you will find a purpose for it. You can serve, you can help others. Yes. And I came to realize that science is about what things are, cells, atoms, molecules. But faith is about why things are, why we are here.
Did he give you a Bible?
Yes, for my first Bible, it was given by him.
So what did you think when you started reading the Bible?
I found this fascinating story on ancient times, And my biggest problem in the beginning was trying to connect to events in the modern time. And I gradually learned that there are many things. The story may be different, the events may be different, but it's the essence, God's teaching embedded those stories in the Bible that it transcends time. That, today as a scientist, we know that we're faced with many challenges. We want to treat Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, macular degeneration, aging diseases. But the only way to treat aging disease is to use young tissue, stem cell, fetal tissue. But that's where the problem is. Should we use fetal tissue? On one hand, we say yes. How can we justify hurting a baby for the benefit of adult? If we say no, doesn't mean we're just going to watch grandma losing sight, become blind, suffering from macular degeneration, aging condition for which the only treatment has to come from use of young tissue. In my biography, From Darkness to Sight, I talked about my nearly 20-year journey, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. I want to help my elderly patients restore their eyesight, but at the same time, I know I have to use young tissue and I don't want to hurt the baby because I already became a Christian. I knew the Bible said that life is sacred. So fortunately, I didn't give up. James 1:4 says that perseverance completes you, mature you. So we didn't give up. I keep on. I just believe that maybe God has a solution, may not be obvious to us, but it's there. And we stumbled upon this piece of tissue called amniotic membrane, the placenta when baby, you can have baby,
swims around it.
Yeah, the baby swims around in the placenta. And after the baby is, one time I was describing this process in front of a group of ladies, beautiful ladies. I said, well, the amniotic sac pops and baby comes out. They say, it's easy for you to say. You don't know how much a woman has to go through. But the baby comes out, the placenta with the amniotic sac was always discarded. So we start recovering those amniotic membrane back into the laboratory and bioengineer the amniotic sac, the fetal youthful healing membrane, into amniotic contact lenses.
Wow.
And put those youthful contact lenses, amniotic contact lenses, onto older patients' eyes so the eyes can heal like a baby. It's a way to do fetal research without touching the baby.
So you didn't have to use stem cells because basically it had everything you needed in that sac.
Yes, it was connected to the part of the baby.
That's so cool.
It's like a blanket.
Because the baby's living in that all that time.
Yes,
forming.
and a placenta donated by one mother after giving birth to a child can be made into now, bioengineered into 100 little amniotic contact lenses.
Wow. Oh, that is so
Have the
cool.
potential to save eyesight of 100 older adults.
Wow.
Amazing.
So I just have to know, through this transition, through this process of becoming a Christian, what did your parents have to say about all that?
Great question. My wife is a Christian, my brother became a Christian, and I started working on my parents, and they were very suspicious at the beginning. I mean, you saw the movie in God's Not Dead, the father was disapproving the whole thing, and that was true. And that when the movie God's Not Dead came out, I actually showed them the movie. My father was getting, elderly and Parkinson's disease, and he saw the movie, and I asked, I said, your son became a Christian. He turned out not to be too bad, right? And he nodded his head. I think they are seeing the most powerful thing, I think, is through action for us as believers, and to show that, as a Christian, that it's not just what we say, it's more important what we do that affect others.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on them.
He sees the fruit of your life.
Yes, and actually my father passed away about a year ago, and so my mom is living with me now, and I took her to churches and influenced her, and she's starting to open up. And I think it's lots of these are lifetime work.
That's awesome.
That's good.
I'm just sitting here thinking about your story. It's so incredible. And for people who are watching who maybe feel like you're in impossible situations, I know, April, you can't hear a story like this and not believe that God can do something incredible with your life.
Oh, yeah, definitely so. And I love what you said. Oftentimes it's about our walk. And there's something my dad used to say, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. And sometimes there's people out there, and maybe there's people watching right now that feel like Joni just said, and they think it's impossible, but look at you, and look how God had used you. I just love it that you were an atheist, but now look what God's doing with you. He can do that with anybody.
And Joni was right. You mentioned earlier, April, you're right, that God put us into things in our lives the purpose of which we may not realize at the time.
Yeah, right.
That now I'm looking back, I realize that the suffering, the Cultural Revolution, the struggle, that God has some intention, there's some purpose of me going through that, so that I will become more appreciative.
Yeah,
of what
he always
today.
uses those things in our life that are difficult. It's in the valley experience that we are refined like gold. It's not on the mountaintop. But as you're talking, I really feel like there are people there that God has gifted you incredibly, and you're already successful, in fact. And but you're missing the faith aspect. And I want you to talk just a little bit about how incredible it is when we take the gifting and talents and abilities that we have, and we surrender them to God, and we join them with our faith and the purpose that comes with that, and how different it makes life for us versus doing it without faith.
Yeah. In medicine today, and you know, doctors are working hard taking care of patients. And the difference that made for me as a doctor, being a Christian at the same time, has several aspects. Number one, I realized that life is not about just receiving. As a Christian, that we want to give, we want to pay back, we want to help others. So it's the Christian faith that enabled me to have this inspiration 10 years ago or so to form a foundation. We want to help those who, despite the wonderful medical advancement, they don't have the financial means to afford the procedure. So we form a foundation. I'm the organizer. I organize 30-some doctors, and we donate our services. And our foundation organizes an event every year, a ball to showcase the spectacular beauty. My dancing, what I learned in Cultural Revolution, now morphed into ballroom dancing now as a hobby. So we used to demonstrate the beauty of ballroom dancing in those events, to raise money to help people see, to showcase how important sight is. Without sight, you can't see the beauty.